Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this class. Yes, we are continuing today the second session, going through the famous letter by Nagarjuna, the celebrated Indian 2nd century Buddhist master, none other than the few who was prophesied, endorsed by the fully enlightened Buddha himself, that who by coming to the world will elucidate the teaching and explain and spread the teaching like the sun's rays spreading to the whole world. Like that, the Nagarjuna's writing will greatly enhance the growth and spread of the teaching. So this is one of the many of his writings. The letter to a friend is sent by him to his friend King Gautamiputra. And so we began last week, and so up to verse number 15, which included the paying homage and then addressing the king. The reason and the motivation behind it, he wrote this text in order to enhance the understanding, realization, faith, devotion, practice of the king. As he would intended this letter to be, but as a result of his great vision, this became a letter sent to each of us as well. So therefore this is the letter that has been sent, you can call 1800 years ago, and it's still received by everybody. It's another chain letter, but still it is one of the most succinct letter in which many of the fundamental teachings of the Buddha is contained. He spells them out under the theme of the 6 perfections, and he began by talking about the importance of having the study of the Dharma, and with respect to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and by which then one practices generosity in one's life. One who practices generosity is usually honoring the Buddha's teachings to practice giving, and then also talking about the importance of have a good conduct that correspond and that benefits, enhance the practice of generosity, and also talks about the importance of honoring the deities. Or in India, that definitely was. India is a very polytheistic spiritual culture where there is one God for almost everything. And so since Nagarjuna lived in India, so we were honoring gods of different things, or deities of different things. In many ways, we may not believe in God and deities as much as in the old-fashioned people used to do, but we still have lots of people who are like deity to us, parents and loved ones and any friends and good friends and people we have learned from, people we have great things to do with. We should treat each other as we treat the deities. So Nagarjuna is of course addressing a particular time during which Indians always had worshipping of the deities. And not to some degree in Vajrayana Buddhism is likewise. Everyone has a deity or a practices. So with that introductory, Nagarjuna then went on to the importance of practicing, more elaborating the 3 last one, that is generosity. Practicing generosity, realizing one's material possessions, firstly as ephemeral, unstable, unreliable, unpredictable nature of material possessions. While one still has the custody, one should use them to benefit others by giving, such as venerable objects of a recipient, as well as those who are worthy of respect, those who are worthy of gratitude, such as parents, those who are worthy of pity, and noble causes. So one will never find a shortage of recipient of our generosity, and then how the generosity makes our otherwise ephemeral material possessions meaningful. Or the hard karma and negative karma we have accumulated making and hoarding the material possessions are paid off by giving away things we have. Otherwise it becomes a burden for one's life, not only in this life, worry, anxiety, daring not to use, cannot go anywhere because one's bound like a prisoner by one's possessions. And Nagarjuna therefore gives this very pertinent advice to to worldly people who have a lot of things, who work so hard just to hoard and only to become a burden and only to become a kind of a prison for oneself. So those who keep less and share those one has to others are indeed wise living. And generosity heals sufferings and arguments. Generosity implants hope in the mind of the people. Generosity gives us the power to make good use from mundane things. So he talked about that as a very important, because particularly his king addressing a king who has a lot more than we are hoarding, and kings are usually getting a lot of things just like that, and often they are treasuring, they are keeping them in treasure rooms and not spending them for noble causes. Of course, in our everyday life, our small share of life, whenever we give, it makes so much more sense of right living. When we don't give and we want more and more, it becomes cause of conflict, greed, hatred, argument, and mutual suffering. And so with these first few verses, Nagarjuna emphasizes the importance of generosity, and particularly the kind of pure morality that is uncorrupted and not a pseudo-morality, not just displaying a moral habit outwardly, but inwardly seeking respect and gain and honor for oneself. If that is the intention with which one practices morality, which lots of people do, by the way, is actually pseudo-morality. That is artificial morality. True morality is humility, and people who do that may pull a lot of effort to display a good behavior outwardly, but actually very judgmental to others, put down others, compete with others, jealous with others, and their own morality is not quite there. So it talks about the importance of that. With these three practices, honoring the deities, generosity, and morality, he therefore uses that as an introduction of his whole book, which means that he's now going to elaborate the whole 6 paramitas. So main text, the text covers what is called 6 paramitas, 6 transcendental practices. And so last week we reached as far as the end of the verse number 14, where the practitioner is encouraged to practice generosity and morality. And then he finished by the end of the verse by saying however deluded and not so proper one may have been in the past, heedless, but later by receiving teachings and understanding the Dharma and its value, and their people have completely changed. They say, I'm a changed person. People can change their behavior and attitudes by listening and discovering the right teachings. And just like the beautiful moon that is otherwise covered by the clouds, when the clouds takes off, you can enjoy the wonderful, brilliant rise of the moon that is shining over the whole horizon. Likewise, we too have the inner beauty, like the moon's radiance, only if the temporal clouds like behaviors and habits and addictions were removed heedfully. So therefore, even likes of Nanda and Angulimala, Ajatasattu and Udayana, these are the 4 persons in life of the Buddha who were considered to be excessive with desire, excessive with hatred, excessive with greed for power, to the extent of killing father and mother and thousands of people. They went to the great extent. But when they met the Dharma, they completely changed. So therefore, King Nagarjuna encourages every one of us that need not to be discouraged by our limitations and mistakes and transgressions or not whatever, but nor should we judge each other for whatever their past was, but knowing that we are turning to the light. and the Dharma, and we have a good reason to feel optimistic to change. So that is what we covered last week, and so that basically finishes the first two paramitas. Paramita of dana paramita, generosity, and also the shila paramita, that is morality. From verse number 15, which we will begin here, starts with the practice of patience, the importance of practicing patience. Because why patience is important is people have hatred over small things, ill will, resentment, and bitterness over small issues. And unless they practice patience, they will breed like a bacteria, and they will become very destructive. So therefore, Nagarjuna goes to say in the verse number 15, the importance of practicing tolerance. He firstly says, there is no austerity like patience. So this first line is talking about did we do that? No, that's where we're beginning. So there's no austerity like patience. So in India, in the very strong religious practices existed. People would do anything to self-mortify their body, go through great length in name of their devotion to the God, or their dedication and to their vow and promise. They will do very hard things even for the physical body to prove that they have devotion or discipline, whatever. So here, Nagarjuna says, there's no austerity like patience. Practicing patience in every day with the people and places and work and family and maybe nature and hardships of your work or duties. Practicing patience, doing them still for the cause we believe to be doing. There's no greater actual what you call penance or meditation. The meditation, austerity, people who practice austere meditation, they eat less, they don't associate with people, listen to no music and so on. People do lots of sacrifices to gain spiritual meditation. But Nagarjuna says, actually the best austere practice is the patience itself. Because with patience you can't just go in a cave and then say, I finished. It's every day you have to practice patience, So therefore, there's no great austerity like patience. And what is the austerity with patience? Is do not give way to anger. So that usually when we find difficulties, we often retaliate. We try to resist and push it away, difficulties. But one who's patient actually sees the virtue in accepting the hardships and seeing this will purify my karma, and this will increase my tolerance. This will purify my own past karma and sufferings that I have caused through impatience in the past. So, by overcoming anger, but be anyone who would embrace to practice patience by not retaliating someone's harm, maybe verbally accuse you or attack you, physically throwing things or hitting you. In such an instance, instead of retaliating, instead of thinking it's such a big harm they're doing unfairly to you, one should accept them as voluntarily accepting the pain caused to us and disregard this. This is nothing for the sake of practicing Dharma. This is acceptable blame or acceptable criticism. Maybe this is the karma of my own hard treatment of others in the past. So if I accept this is a cause to exhaust my own results of bad karma. So actually this is very meaningful opportunity to do. By overcoming anger, if one does that, Buddha stated a number of sutras. One will attain the irreversible stage. One will not only tread the path of the enlightenment, step by step, like what we call bhumi by bhumi, and stage by stage. Slowly one will reach the irreversible stage, is the 8th level of enlightenment. So the practice of patience is the provision through which one should expect to progress on the path. One who is short-tempered cannot achieve even worldly duties, let alone cannot keep up his position or hardships, and cannot accept difficulties, and they will not keep up a position or job even long. And they will lose all their friends. The one who's short-tempered will lose very quickly. And so one may have other faults, but as long as one is not short-tempered, you will actually be able to keep up, maintain your goodness. So that's why this first verse is mainly emphasizing to abandon hatred, which is the cause. And the cause of hatred is the hatred is the cause of impatience. So to practice patience, you have to overcome its antithesis, which is the hatred. And the next is so that is the first verse is more like directly when you are dealing with someone right in front of you, you should not retaliate. You should accept the pain and voluntarily and think it is good for you to forbear these, and out of your kindness you don't retaliate. Out of your acceptance of your own share of faults that has contributed to this, you don't practice patience as a weakness. You don't practice patience to prove that you are better than the other. You practice patience that this is good for me and them and our future. With that kind of vision, one who practices patience, first one, that's directly. The second one is verse number 16, is how to give up. Because some people practice patience, but subsequently they develop resentment. So that is no good, So lots of people practice patience, but subsequently they become more resentful that they have to do the patient thing, So that is the result. The result of impatience is resentment. And the result of patience is non-resentment, lack of resentment, almost gratitude. Says, this person insulted me, struck me, overwhelmed me, stole my wealth. So these are the sort of thing the person remembers. He's hit me, he criticized me, I didn't retaliate, I put up with him one more time, two more times. People remembers, and then keep listing the things the other person did, and one wouldn't forget it. One keep seething and resenting that. So that is the resentment. Such resentment only generates conflict. Yeah. So resentment is a result of impatience. But actually, the patience you practice did lack all the qualities of what patience need constitute. There need to be certain levels of constitution in the practice of patience. Firstly, good intention. Secondly, good vision, good purpose. And you have to have good purpose. You don't put patience so that you look better than the other, which is the wrong reason. You're doing this to give a favor to them. That's not the purpose. One's purpose should be voluntary acceptance of suffering, thinking it might be one's own karma that is exhausted by the help of these conditions. It also will able to diffuse the person's anger. So if I don't retaliate, their anger may be, diffuse. And it also will sweep away my own bad doings in the past, will be changed by the practice of tolerance. If one did all this with the right reasons, then subsequently you actually feel grateful that you had that bout of patience you have to practice. You actually dedicate the practice of patience. That as a result of this, may I be like this in subsequently at all times. I need to wear this kind of armor at all times, and I should not feel that I'm better than the other person. The other person actually became benefactor of my patience. So actually without them I could not have practiced patience. So we are not the actual practitioner of patience. Their instigation made me possible to practice patience. So you feel even more grateful. Bodhisattva don't feel grateful to those who harm him. Did you know that? Bodhisattva feel grateful to those who harm him. Don't feel resentful those who do, So bodhisattvas, if one were to do that, because one is trying to stop resentment. Such resentment only generates conflict. Subsequently, even at that time, you didn't say anything. You just kept a cold face. You didn't say anything that they shouldn't have done such a thing. But just to save the time, you didn't want to sort of retaliate now, but you wait a minute type of thing, you know. That is resentment. Lots of people do that unconsciously. They don't realize it's resentment. So how do you stop it becoming resentment, you know? One who abandons resentment sleeps in comfort, you know. One who has such an exchange with somebody, then if they practice patience there, how do they know they have practiced patience without any resentment? They don't feel heartache afterwards. They don't complain saying, oh, this person did this to me, and I practice patience, otherwise it really looks very bad. I'm so good, I did this. One still have this resentment. One still feel that I'm better than the other. So that actually makes oneself one is resentful. So lots of people's anger is because of very pathetic form of patience with practice. All fighting was done, fleeing was done, because fleeing is a form of passive patience, but it's still impatience, you know. And so in the meantime, one has resentment. Lots of people suffer more from resentment than the actual episode at the time. So the result of impatience is resentment. Cause of impatience is hatred. So these two are shown very clearly in the verse number 15 and 16. First is the showing how to get rid of the cause, because if you don't get rid of the cause, how you can't get rid of the result. Huh? But so if you encounter some hardships with somebody who actually hit you, yeah. These days people think if he hit me means there's no patience. They go zero tolerance. Zero. I mean, they don't even have 5% tolerance. There's just zero tolerance. If somebody hits you, you should do something about it. So here, when somebody does that, at that time one needs to constitute, thinking, oh, this person is not himself. It's something else is making him do. It's like the stone that hurt me is not hurt by the stone. Stone is hurled by the person. And then the person is not doing this by himself. He's forced by affliction. So I should think of his affliction, not the person. So when you're thinking like this, then there's no harboring of ill will or hatred to the stone or the person. But you think, oh, it's affliction that is causing the person to throw such things without knowing he's doing that. Affliction? I have my own affliction. So why would I waste my affliction to highlight their affliction? I should conquer my affliction first. See, that stops hatred. If the cause is stopped, then subsequent resentment will not be there. But when one is practicing tolerance, thinking they did a terrible thing, I wouldn't retaliate because I'm better than them, you know, and I'll do this third time. I'll do this fourth time. Hopefully, I'll get better at it later. But in the meantime, one still thinks that they are the cause of the problem, and that is the hatred. The cause is still there. Then how could you stop the result? So that we should straight away unpack the causes. It's not the stone, not the dog, not the person, not the person's hatred. His ignorance. Oh, you know, he totally got intoxicated. You know, it just wasn't himself. I was too near, therefore he was able to punch me. If I was a few feet away, he wouldn't have reached me. So there are many causes like that. So actually, there's nothing. The stone is not the cause of it. My nearness to it is. So you basically see that there's no inherently existing cause whatsoever to be angry to. So that is how do we get rid of the cause of it? If you did get rid of that, so it's a very analytical, very cognitive. You have to be very conscious to know all of these. Shouldn't be just pious thing to do. Patience, patience. I should practice, shouldn't I? Yes. In the meantime, no consciousness, no intellectual understanding, no reasons, no rationality involved. Just blind faith. Thinking patience is good. But actually it was idiot patience. Idiot patience. Like idiot compassion. So idiot patience. So we must stop that. So Nagarjuna says, that is the cause. If you don't stop the cause, then the result, next time you say, he's the one who hit me. You will instead see, if you didn't have the hatred, you will say, oh, he's the one who woke me up. He's the one who helped me to wake up. And due to encountering situations such as this person, understanding my teaching of the Dharma has greatly improved. So you're actually grateful. Grateful towards them, deep in your mind, have a sense of still feel kind. If hopefully he is not angry and suffering again because of me, and then may my slight virtue that I did practice patience also help him to get rid of his anger towards me and like. When you have that, then there is no cause hatred, no result resentment. That's what Nagarjuna is talking. So. You can sleep very well. Sleep's in comfort. People who don't sleep well, usually they have a lot of unresolved issues, and therefore they're still angry about it. It's in their heart. It's there in their body. They have that angry thought has been kept in the feeling, in the breath, and it's affecting. It's increasing the pressure of the blood. Yeah, it is increasing the indigestion. The whole body is not liking it. They don't know what's going on. They're putting all these things in me. I can't go to sleep. Yeah, anger is a cause of insomnia. I'm sure there are other causes too, but angry person don't sleep very well, and then have very tired, very exhausted, and then get next day very stressed, headache. And all the things. So you see, Nagarjuna wasn't just writing a letter to send him a pen or anything like that, Usually we send a letter to send, could you please send me something from there? Strange reason. He's writing how to get rid of suffering to his friend king. And so, having said that, the cause and effect relation between these two verses clearly, now next verse goes to emphasize the role of the mind. Understand that thoughts are like designs drawn in the water, earth or a stone. For an afflicted mind, the first is best. For a religious mind, the last is best. So this means that the person who understands the nature or the importance of his mind, you should remember the virtue of tolerance, like an engraving on the rock. Just remember the virtue of it and how to do it and what it is, how should you consider the other's role to enable us to practice tolerance. If you remember these very clearly, then the stone carving will not disappear. Yeah, it's always written there. It's good to practice tolerance with the logic, the rational, and to meditate on the dependent origination of it. And that your practice of tolerance cannot be done without associating and working with people like that. And if you're surrounded by people all nice to you, all smiling to you, all praising to you, you wouldn't get an opportunity to practice patience. You're lost in the comfort of, oh, I'm so important. Oh, lots of people love me or respect me. It's very dangerous. You don't grow in comfort. You only grow in discomfort and hardships. So that's why one should realize your thought of tolerance and need of the right attitude and right purpose, right manner, right attitude with which you practice should be written down in your thoughts like a carving. You shouldn't remember, I read the verse number 16 in the teaching and then afterwards forget, like a writing on the water. Writing on the water quickly. You can't see anything on the writing on the water. Few people therefore aims to write on water. So the afflicted mind is like very unstable, very unstable. One moment you want to practice patience, next moment you have no mood to it. It's like the writing on the water. You should really make a mind. What I'm going to do today? Oh, do this. But all most important, practice tolerance. You've got 10 things to list it, but you haven't listed to practice tolerance. So you've written all the 10 things, but all with the practice of tolerance. Then, with the bodhicitta, with the right attitude, then you have written like a carving on the stone. You won't forget it. So telling us that the person who understands the importance is, you've got to make a mind to do that. And how do you know that you are practicing tolerance? Is that you will notice that if you're practicing tolerance, your language and the thinking, not to mention the language in which you speak, will be indicated very clearly. The victors declared the speech to be of three types: pleasing, truthful, improper. And this pleasing speech is like honey, truthful speech is like flowers, and improper speech is like filth, like dirt, So therefore, if you know you're practicing patience, you must mind your language. You must mind your language. Don't say words that are like filth. Don't use the 4-letter words, because they're usually filthy words. And instead you should use words that will please other people, like honey. Pleasing language is like honey, that you say, oh, if I say this, it will really soothe their eyes, soothe the ears, soothe their feelings. So therefore, mindful of what I'm going to say. And if it's like honey, when you're thinking, hey, this will really good, straight away you can feel the honey. Then you should give the honey like speech, or body language as well. Then that is sign that you're practicing patience, And also you should say that is truthful and beneficial. What is truthful is like flower, beautiful. You didn't fabricate it. It's just flower, just is like that. It's beautiful. And so if you're using this honey-like pleasing language and beneficial language like flower, then you are practicing tolerance. Tolerant person practices, even somebody said harsh words, you try to paraphrase in your mind, they really don't mean that, actually they mean this. And then you try to paraphrase to them, thank you, my dear, did you say this? Did you mean this? So actually, that's probably what they wanted to say, but they didn't quite come out that way. When you say, did you mean this, my dear? And then that is the honey. Even if somebody said really abruptly and was no room for confusion, they said the very bad words, but you say, oh my dear, what did you really mean? I think I have misheard it. What did you mean? That you love me? Or you care for me? Or you don't want me to go the wrong direction? Or something. Even straight away paraphrase it, and then you have made the pleasing words, because that's how you practice tolerance. What they said doesn't matter, but what you respond matters. What you respond can iron it out very quickly. All the problems mended by a patient person. Not only is a patient, but also does something that actually mends the problem. That suppose the person who is falling into pieces. Yeah? This is like it says that you should be like a honey. Speak not just sweet talking without a good intention. It's talking with really bodhicitic intention, and then saying the right words to ease the tension and confusion and guilt the person might have. If they said terrible words and you didn't say nothing, you just keep quiet, still like you're just digesting it. Oh, how can I turn this into honey? There's some bee, but bee. With this honey, there's a bee. Yeah, you got stung. I know that. The fact that you got stung by somebody is meaning that you may have some honey. So whether you're going to produce honey or you're going to act like a sting yourself, that's the question here. So Buddhist texts, when they use analogy in many levels of meanings, So therefore, you don't get honey where there's a bee, where there's no bee, So usually those bees sting, So you got to keep those bees. You got to keep those bees and then also take the honey. You don't throw away the bees and then expect to have honey. When people say harsh things to you, that's the opportunity you have opportunity to practice dharma that you thought was sweet, that you thought was honey. Yeah, that's what Nagarjuna says. So therefore, one should have behavior. Visible behavior. People can tell you're practicing tolerance. Somebody may have said or treated somebody badly, but the way you responded to it was like as if you didn't take it any offensively at all. But instead you were more concerned why the person is suffering due to me, and then how can I can help them to come to themselves. That is why you can practice tolerance. Why is it? Some people practice tolerance in silence. It's a bad sign. Yeah, total silence is a deep in your mind. It may look silence to them, but deep in your mind, you shouldn't be shut down. Deep in mind, you're sending loving kindness, sending good thoughts towards them. But straight away on the spot, what you have to do is very skillful. You just have to make sure that you don't enhance them, you don't whip them. So that verse number 18 finishes the practice of tolerance. Now it moves to the next one, which is the fourth paramita, paramita of joyous effort. Paramita of joyous effort. And this paramita of joyous effort means practicing diligence. Persons are of 4 types. So this is talking about human beings can be roughly classified into 4 groups. And that these are this use the analogy of light to ultimate light, darkness to ultimate darkness, light to darkness, and darkness to light. So it means where the people progress or digress. Yeah. The person who, talking about the king Gautamiputra, Nagarjuna says, you are a king. You are a king is like already light. Your life is already in light, You are blessed, fortunate to be born like a king in the human realm, and everybody honors, respect. That's a great fortune, isn't it? Great fortune. So he's already in light. And he's fortunate. Everybody is emulating. Everybody is honoring, and everybody is praising. Everybody wish they were like him. And so he's definitely in light. So now the king should not stay in light and go to darkness, but light to ultimate light. The ultimate light is that king should do good things with his life so that he can reach the ultimate light is enlightenment, Buddhahood. The one who looks after the subject's well-being entirely as everyone is his children. So that is like a person who goes from light to ultimate light is like the king should not just be in light but go to ultimate light. And other beings are born in lower difficult situations, like lower realms or so forth. And others, like darkness to ultimate light, are very few people. Very few people like those, people like Angulimala, people like those were like darkness. They did many dark things, many terrible things. But when they met the Buddha, they were able to turn their darkness to ultimate light, Now these first 2 are very rare examples. The third one is light to darkness. So light to darkness is people whose life, we should be regarded as people who are in light already. And that whether we make better our life or not is the question. So if we practice Dharma and diligent if we're lazy, tolerant if we are intolerant, and generous if we are ungenerous, unresentful if we are resentful, and that is then practicing light to darkness. Yeah. So people listen to Dharma, read, and then they say, I should do this. I'm criticizing my mom. I'm arguing with her. I'm doing this. This I shouldn't do. I should instead be grateful. I should be courteous and this and that. And then I should do this with others as well. And when you start doing that, then you're doing light to, then you're going to light to light. But light to darkness is we are already relatively good, but we are digressing. And darkness to light is very few. Very few are already in very darkness going to be light. So he says, be like the first of these. First of these is going light to ultimate light. Because king is already in light. King is already in light. And we can also think like that. In some relatively speaking, we are also in light. So we should not go to darkness because we are already in light. Because we are already in light. Say if you draw a picture and the light is in the center of this room and we are relatively close to it. Then there are 4 circles. If you go further away, 2 circles further away from the light, then you're going light to darkness. But even though you may go all the way to the second line, but if you return towards light, that's going light to light, yeah? But if you're going from darkness, light to darkness, then you not only leave the 2, you go to 3rd and 4th. So that's talking about deteriorating, digressing, not making improvement. So we should become the first one. We should be the first one. And having said that, the joy is talking about how your effort should be. You should, if your effort to study or meditate or being kind or doing good things to people and being also diligent with yourself, you should build where you are and improve your diligence. Improve your practice, improve your kindness, improve your tolerance, not go back to your intolerant level when you were tolerant. You were a few days very tolerant, all of a sudden you're just grumpy. So that's going from light to darkness. So don't try to show too much tolerance immaturely. Slowly build, and make a promise not to digress. That's what it is as an example point of view. And how do you make sure that light doesn't go to darkness? Little practice tolerance you do today, dedicated. Straight away, rationally, intellectually, reasonably think, my practice tolerance is improving because I'm having to deal with people like this all the time. So because of having to deal with this, have opportunity to grow stronger. So instead of building resentment, you're actually increasing your gratitude towards them. And so if that's happening, then of course you will be going from light to light. Yeah? Having said that, it, however, is difficult to know who you are, what kind of person you are. Because Nagarjuna goes to say, view people like mango fruit, Mango fruit. We don't have a lot of mango fruit here, but when you do see, you wonder. When you go to this fruit shop, you want to buy mango, but you touch it and leave it and touch it, pick it, and then pick another one. Because it looks like ripe, but now it doesn't look quite ripe. So it says that people are like mango fruit. Unripe, outwardly it looks unripe, but inwardly it looks ripe. Yeah? Likewise, people also, outwardly their behavior is very rough and they're very, sharp mouth and short-tempered or whatever. But they may be very good-hearted people, deep down very sincere. And lots of loved people are like that. They are really only rough on you for a while, but deep down they don't mean like that. So they are that kind of people. So never mind the rough or some small noticeable behavior that you think is not good. But deep down in their heart, they are good people. You know that. Yeah, if you know that. That's like the unripe outwardly, but unripe which appear ripe, The other one is ripe which appear unripe, Outwardly it looks very unripe, but inside is ripe, So, and then one is unripe which appear unripe. Not only is unripe outwardly, but also unripe inwardly. The fourth one is ripe which appears ripe. So that is so out of these, of course, we should therefore not. We can never judge people by their outer behaviors or what other people say who she is, who they are. You never know what they say. Human stripes is inside, animal stripes are outside. So here the mango has been used as an analogy, not to judge people by what you see outwardly. Deep down, like lots of young people don't understand their parents. They think parents are trying to control them or they want to do this. Actually, parent meant very well. If they say in Tibetan, "Shatse khala tamye me," means one who cares about you, he speaks not kindly to you. His words are always harsh on you. That's only because they care for you. So if we know that, then we be very tolerant, isn't it? We be very tolerant. Oh, she cares about me. That's why she's. Other people care not, don't even say anything. Just ignore and go past. Only those who care for us will say these things. If we know that, then we wouldn't firstly judge wrongly anybody outwardly, And so that means that these two verses, 19 and 20, is about don't be intolerant people when the way they appear, what they appear to you, how they sound to you. Whether it's someone you have to work with, or work for, or someone from you have to learn, someone you have to rely on, someone you have to respect, whatever it is. Don't just go by the outer appearances, outer forms or behavior or conduct. Deep down, you never know. And so you also have to see if you can do something totally sincere in your heart and then output that just as good as what you feel outside, then you are ripe in and ripe outside. so otherwise give people opportunity to ripe both in and out. In and out. Now this verse number 21 moves to the next paramita, that's paramita of meditation, which is the biggest subject. Biggest subject on this in this take, verse number 21. And here the subject goes like this. The subject is meditation. This is mainly people who wanted to go become usually reclusive monks or mendicants, and therefore having learned the first four paramitas rather, and then they actually want to now develop deep retreat type of meditation. In order to go away to do the meditation, he or she has to give up distraction in life, attachment to this life, attachment to things in life. What are the things that a person get attached to in this life? Firstly, people are so concerned about their senses, and so they have to learn to give up as attachment in relation to the senses. Second is the attachment to forms and sound and smell and all the sense objects. They are attached to the sense objects. And so third is those two, and the third one is 8 worldly dharmas. So I'm giving you the outline here because this is a big chapter. Of these, the first one is how to give up, practice the sense restraint, meaning how to guard your senses. And so here, practitioner might go somewhere or wish to go into seclusion to practice meditation, but they may not be able to restrain the senses. So therefore, it talks about how to restrain one's senses. Here, talking about gaze not upon another's wife. So it's talking about practitioners should focus their attention right in front of them. What is their task, and not let their visual sense organ become distracted by objects that are not proper for ones to show great keenness to. So he says, do not gaze upon another person's wife. For instance, the king who is meditating. But if you see, means if you didn't look, you wouldn't see. But if you did look, you will see. But if you see, so even if you see, you don't see them as objects of desire, but rather see them as differently, that regard according to the age of the person. This is, of course, giving strictly advice by the king to a male, but we can interpret this by king giving this advice to all male and females. Woman doesn't escape here. This is not just advice to just men, and here our audience is half, maybe more female. So it refers to everybody, or even people who are in the same gender. Attracted to, one should focus on one's meditation and don't look. It's basically don't look. And if you see, which is then according to their age, you should see the elder ones as your mother, according to their age, younger ones as your daughter, people of same age as your sisters. So this is very Mahayana. This is very Mahayana way of looking everybody out of respect. Yeah, somebody to love, to care, to protect, to respect, rather than objects to desire. So objects of desire. Even if you try to transform your perception them as brothers or fathers or sons, in the female's case, if you do that, you still develop desire to that person or to the form. If lust arises, contemplate their impure body. So then meditate. If you really see something that is desirable in your mind, then meditate on the actual nature of the body. Actual nature of the body is basically from the skin onwards all the way down to the marrows, if you contemplate, and then there is nothing in the object that is desirable. So because this is for a person who meditate, usually even those who don't meditate, they desire things and they get really looking and they are always hunting. So people who meditate cannot focus on meditation. Desire is one of the 5 biggest hindrances for meditator. Their mind can't focus on the object of meditation. They keep thinking, they keep missing, and they keep conjuring images in their mind. And so that here this is taught how to guard one's senses from looking. And this is some of the reason why people dress properly, people wear veils or whatever, veils and so on. That's why. And in this case, anyway, that one should not look. If one sees them, see them as a such object of care, respect, and kindness. And this is not just only when you're meditating, but also in everyday time when you see, when you should try to treat like that. Then it will restrain your mind desiring the object. If the mind still desires, then should think of the object as unpleasant, impure, and that whole body is impure. And then it goes to say that guard the wavering mind. This is talking about the mind, meditator's mind, which is not focused on his attention, but rather thinking of desirous object. And then he said one should guard this very jumpy mind which is you couldn't contain very well. You should guard this like the knowledge. If you have a knowledge, you make sure that you don't forget them. You write them down, you record them, and keep them there that you can refer to them so that they do not get misplaced. Or your sons or daughters, you look after them so that they don't go out too late on their own or far on their own, or don't go with bad associate and so forth. You're always making sure, where are you? You're not home yet. You're supposed to be back. What the parents do that, always guard the children, guard one's knowledge. Or guard the treasure. If you have treasure, you always guard them so that nobody can rob it and take it away very easily. One should guard one's mind, senses, like one guard these valuables. If you don't guard your senses from the sense objects, such as opposite gender or whatever gender you are attracted to, then your mind is now very, very unstable and it is trapped. So renounce sensory objects. Renounce meaning that you should give up thinking about their desirability. Therefore, they think of the unpleasantness of the suffering and the pain and the difficulties that they comes with. One should think about these things, for they are like cruelty. If someone is cruel to you, you will try to push the cruel person from your life. But if your desire is allowed to prosper or allowed to stay strong in your mind, then that is more self-cruelty than anyone can practice cruelty to you. Also, like a poison snake. Is a poison snake, you try to move away. But if you let your fangs of desire go to bite, that will bite yourself more harm than any venomous snake can bite you. And weapons, you people are afraid of weapons. But this inner weapon, this desire, craving and attachment and possessiveness, and these things are the weapons that are self-inflicting weapons. You don't need others to charge on you with the weapons when you are craving and desiring and these things yourself. So therefore, meditator generally for meditators, specifically for others in everyday life too, one who need to guard their senses. And also those people who know that someone is your enemy, they don't want to go near them. They want them to be restrained. They don't want to come near you or bother with anything. You want them to be restrained. So if the real enemies are one's own desire and craving, these ones, and also like fire. If there's a fire, you quickly alarm and let people know there's fire and try to extinguish it without wasting any moment. But yet people are still not doing anything to extinguish the fire of their own desire. So here Nagarjuna, you can see the beautifully analogies are given, yeah? Beautiful analogies given to the king and like a king, like-minded people who have lots of suffering due to desire. Now this has no exception, you know. You might think, oh, some people this is true, the majority of people. No, we all are in desire realm. So the desire problem or suffering that is caused by excessive desire is rampant. So that therefore this is very, very timeless teaching, I would say, timeless teaching. There is never a time this will go too old-fashioned. This is mainly talking about the danger of one's own desire. And so then it use the further analogy using this verse number 23. The Lord of the Victors. Lord of the Victor refers to the enlightened one. Enlightened one said in the sutras, number of the sutras. Nagarjuna, of course, writing these not as original writing of his, based on the sutras, based on the abhidharmas, based on the vinayas, that he distilled the teachings that he know, then put them nicely in these beautiful poems, and therefore he says, Lord of the Victor said that the lust or desire is like a kimpaka fruit. The kimpaka fruit is one of the fruit that tastes very good, but as soon as you eat it, actually is poison. Inside is poison. It may taste good, but as soon as the person eats it, then it will just kill the person. The kimpaka fruit. It creates conflict and should be abandoned. So therefore, we're talking about the bodily indigestion and all the other physical problems. Your body will react, and as soon as you eat kimpaka fruit, your body will react, and you will have a huge problem with that. So like that, the desire shackles. Desire shackle binds the world in the prison of samsara. This shackle of desire binds beings in the world in the prison of samsara. So he likens the desire as a chain that ties you to the sufferings. And so therefore, King Nagarjuna highlights to the king, if you were to go away and meditate, you should learn to exercise restraint to the senses. So they usually says fewness of desire is one of the requirements for retreat. So you just have few little want and give a simple food and possessions and things, and you don't have the need for them. Then you can meditate very well. Otherwise, your mind is like bound into the prison, and you could not. You're physically in retreat, but your mind is not. So he's talking about how to free oneself from the shackle of desire. So because desire is the first obstacle, first of the five most important hindrances, is that they miss food, or they miss music, or they miss bed, or they miss the hot shower. Or of course these days you can still have shower. The shower is probably allowed. It's not a luxury. It's a basic necessity. So most retreat places got hot showers. So you learn to have not have all the big rooms or 3 rooms or whatever. Try to have the simple things. And the victors over the 6 ever unstable and unwavering senses. This is talking about the Buddhas. Buddhas have said that one should win the battle with the enemy of the 6 unstable senses. So it means the question is you have no enemy but your senses. Your senses are competing with you. Your mental consciousness is trying to meditate. The other 5 senses are asking for this to hear, this to eat, this to drink, this to touch, this to look, this to hold, this to smell. And so these 6 ever unstable, meaning very always unstable and wanting. I want it now, that kind of mind. And then you can't focus. You couldn't focus the meditation on the breath. Once you keep thinking of only say alcohol or maybe Coca-Cola. one just couldn't meditate, And so very unstable. And wavering senses. The senses are only looking for something and couldn't focus one pointedly on the breath, one pointedly on the Buddha or the mantra. Or you can't hear the mantra yourself saying, you couldn't verbalize it. Your senses are just completely all over the place. And victors over the hosts of enemies in battles. So if one needs to win to overcome the 6 senses. Six senses, what is called coming to senses. It actually means overcoming the insensibility of the 6 senses. And the wise view the first of being the greatest heroes. So when the wise view, the one who can overcome like the brave person who can overcome his senses is the bravest person. Instead of the object, instead of the things outside, you don't have to control and defeat them. You have to control your own mind, thinking about them. The one who is able to control the mind, this is the wisest of all. This is the victor of all victors. This is the greatest hero. Is this? So this is talking about that's what we call victorious ones. Those who are win enlightenment, we call victorious one. Why? They defeated the inner enemies of the insensibilities, the senses that are very, very unstable. And he goes to highlight next verse about. Now, so that concludes the general sense restraint. Now, the second is how to give up desirous attachment. Even if you are not looking, even if you are not with such a desirable object, but if your mind cannot switch it off, then what do you do? So how to give up the desirous thought? One is desirous senses, looking or touching. Another is when you are not with the things that you couldn't look or couldn't touch, but how to switch off the mind. That's what we're talking about. Switch off the mental desire. Young girl's body is given as an example. Doesn't matter. It could be young boy's body too, is foul-smelling with 9 orifices. There's no difference between male and female. They all both 9 orifices. So they're equal in that sense. And each of their orifices are a source of bad smells. Even mouth, let alone the others. Because they're all outlet of waste. From excrement to urine to sweat to pus and to earwax to everything is just, all these doors are just the down pipe, exhaust pipe. Yes, so there's nothing in these holes that are desirable. There are the foul-smelling 9 orifices. Not only that, opening of the orifices smell. Deep inside is even more. It contains filth. It contains the 36 impure substances. Difficult to fill, but still not enough. No matter how much food you put through this hole, still bottomless. You have to fill it every day. The delicious food on the plate, but as soon as go into this door, it becomes yucky. Delicious drink, maybe $50 bottle champagne, but nice in the bottle, but as soon as goes here, not a drop is worthy. And so the body is basically a manufacturing, it's a factory of impure stuff. It's a processor of impure things. This is try to increase some kind of aversion that is the antidote to desire. Instead of desiring it, although adorned by, some people might say, oh, it looks very beautiful. Look at the color, look at the dress, or look at the jacket, or look at the tie, or look at the hair. He says, although adorned by skin, be viewed otherwise. He said, these are not himself or herself. That is clothes, that is perfume, that is the little trinkets they just bought for $2. These are not things, desirable one. If these are desirable, just go and buy a whole lot of them. Just hang on there, your nose and body. So he says, don't become swayed or lured by this color or smell or appearance or dress or whatever adornments they do. Don't be lured by these. These are actually exactly opposite. As soon as they adorn these things, they also become dirty. So therefore, the body that you're desiring is very, very exactly opposite. It's the most undesirable thing. And that's how you shun the desirous attachment, so that you don't see people just put on one dress and then watch everybody see the people walking up and down a cat like this. But actually the cloth is and the wardrobe is very special, so which is beautiful, the naked lady or this cloth, so the two are not together, neither is beautiful. Particularly if the audience is not there, she walking up and down herself, nobody's beautiful. So that shows it's mainly the creation of the audience. So that shows that there is nothing intrinsically desirable. It's actually, when you think carefully, that's exactly opposite. It's undesirable. Nothing valuable, nothing beautiful. Actually, the body is the exact opposite of what it is. So don't desire that thing. So this is giving up the mental desire, okay, by thinking like this. And understand the desire of sense objects. So then says, so now you become able to recognize desire as thought. Yeah, not the desire as object. Now you have shunned the object. If you can see the desirable object as undesirable, then what is the desiring of it? So what is it to you? Then says, understand the desire for sense objects is like leper's craving for comfort. So the person who suffers from leprosy, I don't know what is actually causing, but the text says that the leprosy, when people who suffer from leprosy, they have infections, yeah? And under the skin, they have some bacteria, This bacteria makes it very, very itchy, And when you scratch it, the person feels good. But actually, more you scratch, that much it spreads. So the cause of the leprosy is, first is a small infection. And if they cannot cut the limb or that part of the body, that will spread very quickly. And usually spreading is done by itching. Scratching on the itch. The more you scratch on the itch, that much it spread. And so actually the bacteria or poison under the skin gets spread by more desiring to be scratched. And the desiring of the scratch and then scratching of it then spread the very, 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 very disease, and the whole body is infected by leprosy. And the person actually feels temporarily comfortable by scratching, or with any kind of skin irritation, isn't it? Doesn't have to be leprosy. It could be just a heat rash. When you have a heat rash, it feels like good to scratch, but all of a sudden it spread, and then just a small piece here, and then go all over the whole place, and you thought it was feeling better by scratching, but it doesn't. So likewise, desire, that the mental desire is like that. So it's like that tormented by maggots. So talking of maggots, I don't know whether it's real maggots or not. That is under the skin, but it's some kind of bacteria. Yeah, some kind of bacteria. He relies on fire, but he's not soothed. Because this is the Nagarjuna knows everything. The people who suffer from leprosy not only scratch, but they have to go near the fire. So they go near the fire. It feels good because it looks like the bacteria is dying or silence. But actually it spreads more by doing that. So therefore there is no real cure. So whatever he tried to do with the skin irritation caused by leprosy, it may have some kind of a wrong view, the deceptive view that it is comforting, but actually the comfort is actually making it more excruciating to the extent of become very, very deadly. And so that's why there's no soothing or recovery by attending to the infection of leprosy by scratching or touching to the fire. Likewise, the leprosy-like desire, there's no time that it will get satisfied by attending to it. So instead of seeking for it, one should learn to develop the aversion, basically aversion, and try to reduce any kind of a cause that will cause the spread of it. So that those verses is talking about giving up sense, particular sense object like a desirable person's body, like a young girl's body, or old man's body, or whatever it is. Doesn't some people doesn't only desire young girls, but some people will desire the young boys, or some people desire old men. Or some people desire all women, or vice versa. So here, when Nagarjuna is saying this, is that we shouldn't think it's only gender-wise, only men talking about terribleness of the other gender's body. It's not like that. But often people think like that. Language is very, very, very biased, sexist. But actually, remember in the old days, until recently, there were very few people who were literate, and those who were literal or were literate were only men or monks. And so now when we have the literacy has increased, both gender read, of course the author should be very careful. Author should be addressing non-sexist language. Yeah. So sometimes we don't know whether we should write one or he or she or both. Some people say they should be both he and she together. He or she. So in any case, this is a good universal advice to everyone that whoever desires, they should learn to moderate the desire. You can't totally get rid of desire, because even if you stop desiring that, but you desire to attain nirvana, it is also a form of desire. So you can't get away with it. It's still a form of desire, but you're just changing what is not so useful objects of desire to wholesome objects of desire. Desire itself cannot be extinguished until you realize emptiness of self. So then understand the desire for sense object. So that's, we cover that. 27th one is to see the ultimate truth. Now this is coming to the second point of third point of people who have now gotten rid of desirous objects. They're no longer looking at desirable object. They're no longer thinking of desirable object because they're undesirable. And then they're looking at the desire itself, and they see the desire itself, if you attend to it, listen to it, it is like a leprosy. So therefore, now the person might stay in comfort, in retreat, in meditation, yeah? In meditation, you no longer have craving, you no longer have desire. You don't look at anyone with the desirous mind. You no longer have the desirous thought about these things. Now you were able to curtail those things. And then when you reach that level, verse number 27 says, to see the ultimate truth, familiar is the mind with a higher involvement toward phenomena, there is no other dharma, so virtues. This is talking about the one's purpose of meditation is in order to see the ultimate truth. Yeah, it's not saying one is what is desirable, what is undesirable, and reject one and replace that with the other. So that's why this verse is very pertinent. The main purpose is to see the ultimate truth, so that your mind become familiarized to actually to see the actual mind itself. Yeah, actual mind itself. If your mind is able to see the ultimate lack of inherent existence of anything, yeah, and then when your mind becomes very, very engaged and familiarized with this quality, there is no body or no desirable body or no undesirable body. Even the body lacks inherent existence. Even bodies are particles joined together and pieced together, laced together, and then plastered with like the skeleton of the body, and plastered with flesh, covered with the thing. Otherwise, there isn't any body to undesire or desire. The body actually does not really exist. the form and aggregates and sense organs. Even your sense organs itself don't exist, let alone the sense object that is desirable. Yeah, and those things that you see are impermanent. So you should think of the things are impermanent, because there's no other dharma so virtuous. If you can see the ultimate truth, you can see that everything is impermanent, even if it's desirable. But for how long they are desirable? You don't have to say this is undesirable and thinking there's a truly undesirable one. But there's even the desirable one is very, very temporal, very, very momentary. So therefore, when you realize impermanence, you don't have to renounce what is not there. So you thought you renounce, you're missing a lot. Oh, I no longer have this, I no longer have this. But actually, there isn't anything to renounce. That is the right meditation. There's nothing to renounce. It is impermanent things. It's already it renounces you before you can renounce it. And it is insubstantial. It is unsatisfactory. There's no self. So when you're able to consider these four seals of Dharma, this is what it's referring to, the truth it's referring to. Ultimate truth means if you see the four truths, four seals of Dharma, that everything is unsatisfactory, that things are all impermanent, there is no self, and nirvana is peace. That is the ultimate truth it's referring to. If to see these four truths, four seals of Dharma, one should become familiarized with this every day. Then instead of thinking that you have to renounce these, you have to renounce these, and then you have to renounce your thought, everything does not exist from its own side. So they don't really exist from ultimate level. So this verse is precursor, so that you don't fall into the eight worldly concerns. Because people do all sorts of things. They become pure, they renounce everything, they do this, and then they become so important, Then they think they're better than everybody else. Then they think they should be worthy of respect and gain and so on. They should reject others who are not, and they become very dualistic. So in order that practitioner in the retreat do not get into this dualistically, we the Puritanists, others who are unlike us, that kind of religious fundamentalist, in order to avoid this, Nagarjuna is now showing here in the next verse, one highborn, handsome and learned, yet lacking wisdom and morality, is not worthy of respect. So now he's talking about it in this verse number 28, that some people might think that I'm born in a right race. I don't do these things. I don't desire this. I don't drink. I don't do this, and think that they are some kind of elite member of practitioners, highborn. And then they might physically think they are now pure because they no longer touch these things. I never touch alcohol. I never touch meat, or that kind of attitude. And thinking that their whole body persona has become some holy being. And then I know all the Dharma, that kind of feeling of self-arrogance and importance. He says, if one has this kind of superficial worldly qualities, and then yet lacking the wisdom that talked about the ultimate truth, ultimate truth in the previous verse mentioned. If one lacks those ultimate truth wisdoms, and one doesn't have the morality here refers to humility. If one who's arrogant of his birth and his looks and his qualities, that's not morality, that's arrogance. Arrogance is the biggest hindrance to morality. One may not do this, one may not do this, one may not do all 253, but still think that I'm much better than the other, I'm much more pure than the other. That very feeling of self-importance is the most immoral of all immorals. So this is talking about, yet if one who lacks this ultimate wisdom we mentioned in the previous verse, as well as the morality of humility, that even morality does not exist inherently. Even morality is impermanent. There is no moral person that truly exists. So unless one is able to think that, one is not worthy of respect, If one lacks this wisdom and morality, even if one has all these qualities, one possessing these qualities but lacking others should be venerated, Yeah, one who possesses wisdom and morality, but although is not born in high race, although have no good name or reputation or standing in the society or not even learned, he doesn't know anything, it's far better to be venerated because he endows wisdom and morality. So this is very important because remember he is writing this to the king. And the king in India was regarded as a kind of a birthright, that you are above the law. And king is like the Kshatriya rise. That's the second class. After Brahma, king was a Kshatriya rule, like the aristocrat. And so people in India, in a lot of places, not just India. India has a very pronounced caste system practice. But in other societies these days, we go by white collar, blue collar, all that kind of thing. Or people have feeling that who they are, depending what job they have, or how much they earn, or whether they have degree, or whether they got no loan or whatever. People might think their importance is judged by economy or degree or knowledge or where you live or whether you're in debt or not. People, or they're young or they're famous or whatever it is. So those who are attaching importance to these things, but not with the morality, is no use. So one who may not have any of these things, he's all Dalai Lama says to people. He's sitting with this some of the most famous world scientists, leading scientists, and they all come to his door and wanted to listen to his. He says, "I have nothing. I have not a modern education. Don't even have gone to high school. Have not even finished high school. I have no degree. I just know Buddha Dharma." And he's sort of lamenting, Of course, he's just being modest, He's just being modest, and that's the kind of quality we're talking about. That yet invite all these scientists who they think they're so important. Of course, we like to believe them, But he sit there, listen to their story, what they got to show, teaching small things, and still he still doesn't dismisses them or thinks that I'm above this. He still sits there every year. He spends 10 days to just sit with all people, and then go everywhere and meet and learn from everyone. These are the quality of humility. Wearing everybody's hats, go to their temple, bow down and do their religious, cultural beliefs together, this sort of thing. And some people just religiously just, no, I don't go. Oh, some people think that they work in certain office, and then when if they are sort of first secretary, they will not go with the people who are lower than that, They only go with people who are above first secretary and things like that. You see, we have some interesting people. They wouldn't come with such and such. I say, oh, he's just junior to me, so I send my secretary. So things like that. People who caught him that kind of hierarchy, that they don't want to come with ordinary people. So those who have this, then no matter what quality they have, it just defeats the purpose. So this is a special pertinent advice to the king. And a king in those days are very, 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 very high status. They have all kinds of protocols, too much protocols, So this is reasoning. One should reason carefully, even though you have many, many worldly qualities that everybody eyes and speaks highly and think great. But if you have all of those things, but if you have neither of these other two qualities, forget it. That's what Nagarjuna is saying. So you should have these two qualities, even if you didn't have all the others. The world knower said that 8 worldly dharmas are, now this is why I said that the reason why these 2 verses are put here, this is all part of meditation. Remember, people are now meditating. Now they have renounced desiring. Now they desire, stop looking, stop thinking, and then now they have become quite pure, Now they become quite good in the retreat, And then they start thinking, oh, I'm genius. I can do this. I'm very good at this. But they get distracted by these things, and then the world knower said the 8 worldly dharmas. Worldly dharma means mundane, worldly concerns. It's not a spiritual qualities. These are worldly traps. We can call them worldly traps because worldly concerns doesn't make sense. They are worldly dharmas. We call worldly dharmas in the Buddhist texts. You should know what 8 worldly dharmas are after attending tonight class. These are 8 worldly dharmas are listed here. What are the 8 worldly traps? Gain. Gain here refers to your status, your importance, your income, your how you people treat you and treat you nicer than before, and then you become happy. So that's a worldly trap. Instead that your gains, your profit, your income, your status, these have dropped down, then you become unhappy. So if you experience loss, then you'll make a lot of noise. If you're in a happy mood, if you're gaining something, you're really, really very puffed up. So these are gain and loss worldly trap. So there's four pairs here. 4 pairs here. 4 pairs? Yeah? 4 pairs, yeah. Gain and loss. Then happiness and unhappiness. Say you have some few things going very well, happy. You shouldn't be too puffed up with the happiness, And then when you're happy, you will do anything. When you're unhappy, you're very miserable. So often people like that, isn't it? Just either up like that or like that. They couldn't have this balance. So that even if something has upset you, you shouldn't be too worried about that. These 2 will not last. You should think like that. Even things are going very, very well, you shouldn't get trapped into this, that I deserve these, I work so hard to earn these, now it's about for me to celebrate and get really caught up in this. One should think, even these things, I have to be very careful. These 2 can ruin me if I'm not careful. So one should not fall into the happiness and unhappiness trap, gain and loss trap. That's usually it. Whenever you see somebody come and complain about their life, it's all falling into one of these 4 traps. If not 2, if not 3, if not 4, at least 1. Another is kind and harsh words. When people speaking kindly, speaking directly in front of you, they speak kindly, respectfully. Even aware you, they're singing praises for you. And then you think, oh, great, you are great, they are great, you deserve it, that sort of thing. Or even if somebody harshly criticizing in front of you or behind your backs, and you think it's terrible that they are doing this to me. So that kind of. So you should just remain placid, You should remain, very, very passive. Because both of these are traps. One should not get lured into the kindness and generous words. Even if people are kind, you should think that's very generous of them. They speak kindly to you, but don't use that to puffed up your pride and ego and self-importance. Even if people are really, really harsh, saying terrible things to you, you shouldn't think it's them. You shouldn't think it's them. It's their perception. Maybe they're seeing something you're not quite perfect. Maybe they have a point. Then keep quiet. So take it as a good advice. So then you're not falling into that worldly trap. So if you're retreating in meditation, you are learning to retreat from these worldly traps. Even you're away from home, maybe 200 miles away, you haven't seen an email for 5 days, or something like that. You haven't had a banana cake for weeks. You just had the simple tea and some things and some oatmeal and just some few Mars bars and meditating. Even then, you got to make sure that you don't fall into the worldly trap of highs and lows. This is worldly dharmas. Even people blame you. it's good to blame you, because if they blame you, that will test your compassion and wisdom and impermanence and selflessness and blamelessness, everything. So it is actually right time. When Buddha came out of retreat, he had just as many opponents as there were devotees. Everybody was up in arms, those who are in different religious tradition and those who are themselves self-proclaimed religious teachers of the day. He had 6 most ferocious opponents. Can you imagine? These are not just some people in his relatives. These are just big religious leaders. Mudik Tamba Truk, we call that. 6 great leaders of religious proponents. They all were against him. So instead of thinking that they're blaming or whatever they do is cause of harm to oneself, one should not highlight that. So therefore, falling without letting oneself fall into these people praising you or blaming you, liking one and not liking others, one should see these things all as impermanent, transitory, superfluous, and not worthy of putting an assent to it. But instead, one is not dismissing them. One sees them as the nature of samsara. If one is trying to get away from the samsaric faults, then one should transcend these things. Because that is why meditation is all about. Meditation, you go away of desire and objects and people and thoughts about them, you go over them. But even if you are able to contain your ordinary desire for this and that, but if you're still desiring pride, you're still desiring respect. So you haven't really retreated anything. You have actually gone closer to the real root cause of the problem more. So therefore, Nagarjuna's advice is very, very sequential. He's slowly building from the gross, saying you have to get rid of this and that, and then you go and stay in a deep retreat, and then you're still looking for praise. Oh, you're so great, you did such a long retreat, oh good. Oh, you spent so much in this retreat, wasted your time. Somebody should tell us that. You wasted 3 years doing nothing. That would be good lesson, good exercise, good examination. First time you come to this out of the retreat, people say that. Of course, majority people waiting with flowers and saying, "You're great, well done, you did the retreat," all these things. Of course, it's very dangerous for the pride of the individuals to welcome which and not with the other. You see, so here Nagarjuna is highlighting that not fall into these 8 worldly dharmas. This is very universal in Mahayana and Theravada teachings, these 8 worldly dharmas. So instead of falling yourself into these extreme traps, exercise equanimity. So equanimity meaning that you don't be biased to gain and biased against loss. You shouldn't be biased to happiness, unbiased to unhappiness, and so on. So instead, you should exercise equanimity. Equanimity has a sense of futility to get attached to one, averse to another. These are samsara. So you haven't really retreated anything. You have retreated from people and places and things, but you haven't retreated from root cause of suffering. Root cause of suffering is not people and places, it's affliction. True origin of suffering, Buddha said, second noble truth, is one's craving. If one is craving for praise, then you haven't retreated at all. So therefore, practice equanimity, as these 8 worldly dharmas are unworthy of the mind. It's not worthy. If you spend 8 months meditating, but still seeking respect and gain and status, and some kind of rights, because a lot of people do that. If they say they have some rights because they have done this or they have done that, that is like a spiritual kind of a materialism. So Nagarjuna highlights the importance of not becoming lured by the 8 worldly traps. And then we will conclude with this verse. He says, you should not commit sins for the sake of. So they say, once the king has learned to do this practice, he says, because sometimes the kings and people and like us, we will do anything for some people, because we're so attached to them. People say, I'll do anything for you. they're so attached to something. So the king Nagarjuna is warning the king that you should not commit any wrongdoing for the sake of anyone. If you really are doing retreat and meditation, do the practices, then you should not do anything even at the order of your Brahmin priest. And a Brahmin priest in India has a lot of demands, and so you should not heed to somebody and do, if it's improper thing, you wouldn't do even at the Brahmin's asking, or even for the sake of monks. Oh, I have some monks coming. We have Tibetan Buddhism. I have invited some lamas at home, and I should offer them a good feast, and then they buy some meat. So for the sake of the lamas, they think it's okay to go and buy some meat. Of course, this is a difficult practice, very, very difficult practice. That shows how difficult it is to undo samsara. So people will do deliberately go and serve meat dishes because they have monks coming. They may not afford to have meat. They may have just simple food. Because they're inviting some special guests, then they don't mind putting a big feast which has meat in it. So this is talking about such things. Monks, not just meat, but some other things, whatever it is that is excessive. What is everything excessive even for the Brahmins, the monks, or in the name of the deities? Some people sacrifice, goats in front of some Kali statues in Nepal and India, and quite a lot of primitive society. They sacrifice animals to please the gods because they think the gods are pleased, and they strew the hot blood on the statues, and then they dip the fingers, put a dot here. That kind of funny and fundamentalist religious practices, because in India such things existed. In India, not only India, in Nepal, they still do the sacrificing of animals to appease their gods. So Nagarjuna is addressing to a very strongly existing, audience. They used to have lots of practices like that. And guests, you have special guests. Yeah, you can do. Today you have special guests. Yeah, special guests, you have to offer everything. Yeah, so even for the special guests, you shouldn't do anything. Even for the parents, you shouldn't do the things of that nature. Or queens or king will do anything for the queen, I suppose. But even for the sake of queen, you shouldn't go and do these things. Because now Nagarjuna is giving advice to the king how to go from light to ultimate light, yeah? So if to go from light to ultimate light, you could not be doing these things even as a king. So one should not be above law of karma. That's talking about. One should not be above law of karma. And even for your retinue, they will not be able to share the smallest part of the result of hell if you create it for them by your own intent. So it's talking about karmic responsibility. If you're doing harmful in the name of them that you could say that you're doing for them, but primarily karma is created by one who intentionally does it, not for whom it is done. And so therefore, this is a great teaching. Sometimes we might go and do this. Some people, out of respect, they say, "Oh, it's for my guru. It's okay," They think they can do certain things because they have so much respect to the guru, or so much devotion to the parents, or so much devotion to monks or Brahmins or special guests, and if they do that, and so it's talking about the importance of, because when you practice meditation, not only one should be free from worldly traps, that one should also learn to be mindful of even smallest minor harmful deeds should be abstained from. So this concludes the not the meditation, but a renunciation from the worldly dharmas. renunciation from worldly dharmas. If you renounce people and desirable objects and comfort and so on, that's one thing. Then you renounce the thought about them. And then after you have renounced the thought about them, then you might think, I'm now good, I'm so good. So that kind of self-importance, worldly dharmas, becomes the more subtle things one should renounce. One should think renounce. That's what it's in the reading of teaching says, if your meditation is going very well, people think really great. When they have met a lot of karma, a lot of obstacles in retreat, then they think it's not for them. And they couldn't be bothered continuing. They walk off and then criticize others for not guiding them or whatever, People make those sort of things, They don't realize their karma has a long way to go. And they have just started the journey. Nobody has reached enlightenment and comfort. Buddha's body was almost turned to like a rock, like a whole body was green and emaciated. Did he complain to everybody saying that his retreat is not comfortable? So one should, this is talking about that just because you couldn't have a pleasant retreat, or if you still want comfort, you want pleasant to have retreat. If your retreat want a pleasant and yet enlightenment, these two cannot go together. So therefore, when you have unhappiness and then you can't do it, then you get totally rejecting of the practices as a fault of somebody else. As usual, of course, in life, one does that all the time. It's out there, the problem. One who does that is basically caught up in they did renounce few things, but they didn't renounce the worldly traps. That's exactly what Nagarjuna is slowly building. This is not just for king, but this is anyone who's seeking to do meditation and retreat. Sure, we should learn to reduce our excessive desires and indulgence, and even everyday life is considered to be unhealthy, and a spiritual life, of course. But even if you have done all of that, there's no license to want to have a free run after that. That's just the first level. And the next level is one should not seek respect and gain and all these worldly traps. If one is that, then one should know, now I should learn to retreat from this. Retreat means move away and not go closer to the worldly dharmas, but one should instead should retreat from this. Because if you do that, then you will be more careful enough to not blame somebody. Then you can blame blame any of these, saying, my practice is not good because of this, because of one of this, because I follow this instruction, I follow this guidance, and this didn't work for me. Why did you do such a sinful thing in the advice of somebody to do that? And people will start then, was a bad trade person blames his tool, It's like that. One whose practice isn't good enough, they fall in the worldly trap, and then they will be, of course, be tested by their own practice. So therefore, the practice needs to take a long time, slow and steady. So for those who are seeking to do meditation retreat, they should first learn to retreat those outer things, sense objects, desirable objects, and then the thought about it. And then even one is free of them, still the gain and achievement and all that self-importance, one should learn to slowly trim this down. Then one is definitely heading towards what he said, going light to ultimate light. Because otherwise, start very well, did all the amazing right moves to do the things, and all of a sudden, boom, just complete reverse. Completely reversing, that would be from light to darkness. Light to darkness. And therefore Nagarjuna said that one should learn which of these are the things one might be doing. So one should not digress, but carefully negotiate one's stages and path and practices. Because this is the biggest chapter, the chapter on the fifth paramita, the paramita of meditation. So we'll conclude it tonight. I have to discipline to do at least 15 verses per night, then we'll finish these on time. Because in the past I have I've said so much on one verse, I don't get to move on much, and then we can't finish the text. We can't really finish the text, but just pretend that we can finish the text, at least covering the subject. So we'll dedicate the merits. Thank you for your attention and listening. The merit of this will greatly help us to tread the path with that mindfulness. So we do the dedication of merits on page 11.
Thank you.